You want to be compensated. You want your dental bills paid. Mr. Loeffler says that you were actually the aggressor. He acted in self-defense. Tell me when this party was.
It was March 18th, 07.
And where was the party?
Me and my wife, Ashley, were invited to go out to eat with his witness, Stephen, over there, and his wife's to go out to eat to dinner.
The six of you?
No, originally it was only the four. It was me, Ashley, and Stephen and his wife.
And your wife?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? Who were friends? Who knew each other?
Ashley knows his wife from school.
Okay, great.
So they invited us to go out to dinner. We met at their house. We went from their house to Port Sakal in Long Beach. While we were there for a while, Travis and his wife met us there.
And had you known Travis before?
No, I haven't.
You never met him?
I met him maybe one other time.
Okay. But you weren't friends?
No, we're not friends.
Had it been prearranged that you were going to meet for dinner, or was it just by accident that you met?
Yeah, just called up and...
Who called you?
I called Stephen and his wife on that day, and we were free, and we wanted to hook up and see each other and hang out.
So that he invited you to come along. Then there were 6 of you having dinner.
There were 6.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, we had dinner. A few people had something to drink. I had a drink. Travis had more than a few drinks. We hung out, ate dinner. We went on a boat ride in Port Sakal toward the Long Beach port. After that, we decided to head back to Stephen and Rosalie's house.
That would be your house?
Yes, ma'am.
So me and Ashley got in our car, and we proceeded there. We got there, and when we got there, Rosalie had shown up without Stephen. So I decided that I would get...
Well, your wife came without you?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you?
I was still down at Port Sakal.
Doing what? Stand up. Stand up, and before you answer my questions, take your hands out of your pockets. I want to explain to you that if you give me the honest answer the first time, we won't have to embarrass you. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Why did you stay in ports of call?
Me and my wife had gotten in a bickerment, and she went ahead and went on.
An argument.
An argument. And she went ahead and drove on while I walked, and we cooled things down, and I ended up just walking home.
So you were not there, just your wife, correct?
At that moment, yeah.
Now you can sit down. If I need you again, I will holler.
Okay,
Yeah.
So he wasn't there, so I decided to get into my car and go pick him up, because he didn't have a ride. Okay, I drove to Port Sakal. I couldn't find him. On my way back from Port Sakal, I got pulled over for illegal window tint, got a ticket, so it took me a little bit to get back. When I arrived back at Stephen's house, he was there. Upon that, Stephen and Rosalie were arguing. We were all inside the house.
That's Stephen, so Stephen and Rosalie are arguing.
They were arguing, right.
Raise your hand, Stephen, so that everybody knows who we're talking about. I didn't say which hand. You could raise both hands. Perfect. Stephen was fighting with Rosalie.
Rosalie, right, correct. We were all in the house at that time. Travis and Rosalie began to argue.
Travis?
Travis.
That would be you. And his wife?
Correct.
Started to argue.
They had words across, and I don't know exactly what it's about, but they were arguing amongst each other. Rosalie had asked Travis to please get out of the house, because it was her house, and she'll do what she wants, you know. And so me, Stephen, Travis, Shay had all gone outside at this point.
You, Stephen,
Travis, and Shay, Travis's wife.
That would be you.
We had all gone outside at this point because Rosalie was mad, yelling.
That everybody should get out.
Everyone should get out.
Of her house.
Out of her house, correct. So we went outside. Travis and Rosalie were having words across from each other. Stephen was trying to calm Travis down.
Steve, why were you involved in their business? Why were you involved in their business? Don't
Rosalie had started arguing with me, trying to get me and his wife involved with their business.
Didn't she tell you to leave?
She did after there was already words.
Well, I understand that, but after there was words, she told you to leave.
She told us to leave, and we started leaving, and we had actually got out past the front gate before they had got out of that house.
Fine, go ahead.
Okay, we ended up out front. Stephen was trying to calm Travis down because they were arguing, and they started to get a little loud. So I tried to intervene and tell Stephen and Travis, you know, we calm down. We're yelling. We're outside. It's 10 o'clock at night or whatever time it was, and I couldn't get any.
You weren't involved in the argument.
I wasn't involved in the argument. I couldn't get a word in across trying to calm both of them down because they were yelling at each other. So I gave up, and I started to head towards my car, which happened to be in between Stephen and Travis. And as I walked through, he struck me right here on the back side of my jaw. And I asked him why he hit me, and he didn't have a reason. He said I came at him.
Go ahead, now I'm listening.
Okay, so they were getting in an argument. My wife said, okay, it's time, let's go. So we start walking out the front door. We get to the gate. We start walking towards our car. I forget we had brought food over. So I turn around and take it back.
Why?
To get it and take it home with us, because we hadn't eaten dinner.
I thought you had dinner at the restaurant.
No, we ate. That was earlier in the day. That was around 1 or 2.
Well, so you mean that you weren't out for dinner, you were out for lunch?
Yeah.
And then you took a boat ride.
Right.
And then you were fighting and everything, and then you forgot your food inside.
Right.
Go ahead.
So I turn around to go back for the food, and as I'm going back, I see him pushing his wife out the front door, down the steps, onto the ground. I say, "Hey, what are you doing?" At that point, he turns towards me and starts yelling at me and obscenities, and I don't got a problem, just don't do that, you know? Don't push your wife down on the ground. And at that point, he's about 5 feet from me, still yelling in my face.
And where is his wife?
His wife is back at the front porch where he left her after pushing her down.
You mean he pushed her down and she fell on the ground?
She fell on the ground.
Go ahead.
Repeatedly. My wife was standing behind me when he was standing in front of me. At that point, he comes at me like this. I took it as a threat, and that's when I swung on him.
That's when you clocked him.
That's when I clocked him.
Okay. Stand up. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, don't look down. Look at me.
Yes.
I have a few questions, Ms. Schultz. How long have you and the plaintiff been married?
2 years.
You have children?
No, we do not.
You live alone with him?
No, we live with my grandmother.
How long have you lived with your grandmother?
I lived with her about approximately 2.5 years, and he moved in 2 years ago.
Why did you move in with your grandmother?
To go to school?
Have the police ever been called to your house?
No, they have not.
Police ever been called to your school?
No, they have not.
Did you ever make a complaint with the police regarding domestic violence?
No, I have not.
Tell me what happened on the 18th of March.
Well, Rosalie and Stephen were arguing, and then Rosalie and Travis began to argue. I don't know what about, and she told everyone to get out. I actually stayed in the home with Rosalie to calm her down and put her kids to sleep. At that point, I don't know what happened exactly. I was not witness to Travis hitting Josh or any of the argument outside.
You remained in the house?
Yes, still with me having a cigarette.
Where's your wife now?
She's at work.
At work where?
Animal control and care in Castaic.
What's her phone number?
310-4.
Is that her cell phone or her office phone?
Her cell phone.
Is this Rosalie Doyle? Rosalie Doyle, this is Judge Judy Scheindlin. How are you? Very well, thank you. I have a couple of questions to ask you. I'm sure that you know that your husband is here with regard to a case that happened back in March. Okay. And I have a couple of questions to ask you on some information that I need some assistance on, some clearing up, okay? After you spent the afternoon and the evening, you took a boat ride, you and your husband had an argument, is that right? And you left him at the location where you had been drinking, whatever. Okay. Can you tell me what the argument was about, Rosalie? Mm-hmm. Mrs. Schultz, who was also there that evening, she was at your house. Do you smoke? Yes, and so does Mrs. Schultz, is that right? She stayed in the house after other people got into an argument. She stayed with you, is that right? Okay, and then you went outside with her and were having a cigarette? Go, relax. And it was at that point that her husband came around and told you that he wanted to leave, that he had been struck? Okay. Rosalie, you are a doll. Thanks a million. Thank you, too. Bye-bye. Liar, liar, pants on fire. You too.
Not me.
Oh, you too, because I
Not
just
even.
spoke to Rosalie.
That's
And
good.
Rosalie tells me the following story. The reason you had an argument with your wife, sir, is because you were acting like a fool around people who had children. And you were on a couple of rides and your pants had fallen down so that your behind was exposed. And your wife said to you, pick up. Does that sound familiar to you? Mm-hmm. Your wife said to you, pick up your pants. You're not supposed to walk around in front of children with your butt exposed. And then you called her a name. That's when she left you in the parking lot so that you could cool off. There is no question that Rosalie said to me that Mrs. Schultz was in the house with her, helping to put the kids down to bed. They had put the children down to bed. They were both on the back porch having a cigarette because both of them smoke. And she said that's when her husband came in and said, I'm getting out of here because I'm not going back to prison for anybody.
Right.
And that is when they left and you rushed them, according to Rosalie. So, what were your dental bills, sir?
Let me get it for you, Judge.
You know, the only sober witness here was
hey,
her.
Listen to me. You think I'm going to ask her any questions? All I had to
No, 'cause
find
they were
out
all
was
drunk.
whether he was telling me a lie, and if he was telling me a
wasn't
lie,
out there during the
and if he
incident.
was telling me a lie, then so were you.
Obviously.
Absolutely, because you brought him.
Obviously. I didn't bring
Absolutely.
him.
He's
You
not
guys
sitting
called
over there.
him.
Hey, we don't argue with me. Nobody argues with me. Sometimes I let Bird argue with me. Certainly not you.
That's okay.
1,400 and how much?
9603.
Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You can step out.
He comes rushing me like this. That's it.
Oh, I'm not the type to just get hit like that.
I told him to stop pushing his wife around.
But I have a record, and I was on parole at the time, and I would have went to prison
And he turned his aggression toward me.
if I would have assaulted him.
And that's what happened.
Don't hang out with drunken idiots.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Butler versus Spear, step forward.
Pamela Butler is suing the father of her child, Stephen Pat Spear, for money owed on a Jeep that she sold him. Pat says the vehicle turned out to be a piece of junk.
Where do you live, Miss Butler?
Hartford, North Carolina.
And where do you live, Mr. Spear?
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Do you really love each other?
No.
No.
Huh?
No.
No.
Do you really have a need to see each other?
Yes, I have his son.
Not
Same,
just
yeah.
the son, but you really have a need to see each other? I ask you that question because this case, to me, is such nonsense that other than the fact that you really wanted to see each other, you would not have traveled from North Carolina and you from Virginia, other than the fact that you really have a burning desire to spend a little time together.
We haven't seen each other since
Well,
we were here.
maybe that's the reason. Because this is what this ridiculousness is about. Ridiculous to me, maybe not to you, but certainly to me. You have a child together. And a while ago, you had an old car that you were going to have towed away as junk, according to you. Mr. Spear was talking to you on the phone, and he said, you know what? Instead of towing it away as junk, I'll take it. You know, I could use it.
Well, she offered it to him.
Or she offered it, whatever. And according to you, you said, fine, I'll sell it to you for $450. He came and he took the car. He didn't pay you. So you're suing him for $450 that you said you agreed to sell him this piece of junk because you were just going to junk it. You were going to tow it. That's according to you. I read this very carefully. Okay? Now, Mr. Spear says that when you discussed this whole car nonsense, he said, I don't feel comfortable about taking this car from you for nothing. I'll give you $300 for it, which suggests to me that you really still carry a torch for her. Because another normal person would say, well, if you're going to give it away for nothing and you're going to junk it, I'll come and take it off your hands. You won't have to pay for towing. That sound right to you?
Sounds absolutely right.
Instead, this is the only non-custodial parent that I know who says, let me give you more money. I don't know many of those people. In any event, he didn't give you the $450, and he didn't give you the $300. He says he didn't give you the $300 because he put more money into the car than the $300, so it's worth only what he put into it, and he's not giving you any money. That's your defense.
Essentially, yeah.
What do you want me to do? Explain to me what you want
Okay,
me
when
to do.
I offered it to him for free, it was just in passing because I was selling it, and the man that looked at it, it wasn't running that well. And so he said no, he didn't want it. So I went out and looked at it, and it was a vacuum hose that was leaking, not the head what me and the neighbor kind of thought. So when I replaced the vacuum hose, it ran fine.
You told me in your complaint you were going to have it towed.
Okay.
In November 2006, I called Pat and told him that I was thinking of getting my 1995 Jeep towed away because it was of no use to me.
Okay.
That's what you wrote.
That's when I thought the head was cracked.
That's not what it says here.
Okay.
So, suggests to me that you two people really wanted to have a dinner together.
No, we're not even going to see each other while we're here.
No.
All right, so how much do you want to pay for the car, sir?
Well, I put so much into it.
I don't care whether you put so much into it. That's your problem. Did you tell her that you would give her
$300, but, you know,
You
when she
offered her
upped it-
300, and did you give her the 300?
No, I didn't.
Well, you have to.
No, I didn't. I mean, she upped it when
Your
I was
Honor, I
in the middle of
upped
the
it.
road, and like, you know, I had no choice to offer to say, okay, I'll pay the $500. But I said, as
What
long as it
500?
doesn't
We're
break
not even
down.
talking about 500.
Well,
She said
450, the 450. And I said,
You know,
but
you
if,
look
as
at
long
me,
as it
you're
doesn't
making it
break
up as you're
down.
going along.
No,
No,
he
ma'am.
bought a battery for it, and I took off the price
Oh,
for the
yeah.
battery. Your Honor, when I found out that it was running well, I know these Jeeps go for $2,000. I brought proof of it.
I don't care. How come it was running well? What do you think? You think that the Jeep Fairy came down and fixed it?
I think I fixed it with the vacuum hose.
Then you should have sold it to somebody for $2,000.
Well,
you
I
didn't.
wanted to help him. He didn't have a car at the time, and I wanted to help him because he is the father of my son. And I wanted him to have transportation to come pick up his son halfway. I wanted him to keep his job so he can pay child support.
So?
So?
Well, then I ended up essentially losing my job because it broke down on me so often, and I had to call into work so many times. And
Why didn't
That's
you
because-
sue her? Why didn't you counterclaim, sir? Should have counterclaimed.
Because she's the mother of my child. I didn't want to
being
cause more
facetious.
trouble for her.
Mr.
I wish
Spear,
I took it for free in the first place. is what I
Please
did.
try not to talk over me because,
yes,
you know,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
you know, I really control the audio here.
I understand that.
Do you understand that?
Oh, yeah.
So try not to talk over me. It's
Yes,
just irritating. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. I was being facetious when I said, why don't you sue her for losing your job because your car didn't run well? How old are you?
40.
You should have a car that runs well.
Yes, ma'am.
You should, at the age of 40, have finally figured out what you're going to do with your life so that you can have a car that runs, sir. That's not her fault.
Well,
so if
I
you keep
stopped
losing your
doing-
job because you don't have a car that works, that is your fault. It's not Bird's fault. It's not my fault. It's not her fault. It's not these good people's faults.
He thinks it's
your
my
fault.
fault.
Okay. So how much did you agree ultimately to pay her for the car, Mr. Spear?
Well,
Look at me over
ultimately,
here.
500, and then like